Thanks. So, hi, my name is Cesar Hidalgo, and I assume this is going to start, it already started. Exactly. Yeah. I direct the Macro Connections group at the Media Lab. There's Danny, there's Shahar, who work with me, and today I'm going to talk about culture. So actually, I'm going to be talking about something a little bit different. This is not going to be, the impact of papers, which is something that we have been talking more about today, but actually talking about cultural development. And my group works at the intersection between networks, data science, visualization, and we always tend to do projects that are quite publicly minded. So the first question that I'm going to ask is, well, what is culture? And I'm asking this question just so we're on the same page, and it depends who you ask. Some people say that this is the range of human expression. Some think of it as the maxima of an artistic movement. Some people think of the socially transmitted and shared beliefs. There are some simpler definitions of culture. You can think that eventually if you want to have some milk and you want to have some bananas, you can go and you can suck the teeth of a cow. But eventually we don't do that. We eat a banana split. So that definition is that basically culture is everything that we do, but we shouldn't. And the definition that we're going to be using here is a bit of a combination of these things, in which we're looking at the maxima of, the human expression. So why culture? If you look at culture, just box office revenues of the US, they're comparable to the GDP of Argentina. If you add sports, it's comparable to the GDP of Sweden. Also, culture is a source of national identity. Why are we interested in culture? Well, we're interested because it is a metric of development. In the past, we have looked at the mix of products that countries export, and we find that actually, those differences can help us explain which countries are rich, which countries are poor, which countries grow, and which countries grow less. And if we look at the history of development measures, we can think that in the 1930s, we're looking at measures of flow, like total GDP. In the 1990s, we added measures of basic services such as the Human Development Index. Then eventually we added measures of economic complexity, but we have no measures that try to determine cultural achievement. So how do we measure cultural achievement? We take like a guy like Elvis Presley, who's a biography in Wikipedia, and we count the number of languages in which he or she would have a presence. So we take ultimately global impact. We say global impact is measured in many different languages, and this would gives us a landscape that has like a fat tail distribution. On the far left there, you have like big hitters like Jesus and Barack Obama and Da Vinci. On the left, you have people that nobody knows about. And on the middle, you have like the Beatles, rightly sorted with John Lennon there. Are there biases? For sure, and there's a lot of them, obviously. And the only comparison that we can do is with Charles Murray. He published a book called Human Accomplishments. He looked only at art and science people. He has more presence of people from Asia, but he has less presence of people that are liberals. If you know Murray, you understand. Then also culture differs, countries differs on the size and the type of culture that they express. So this is the US, Brazil, and Chile, at the right proportions, And if you look at the US, it's a very diverse cultural landscape. This is integrated over, more than 2,000 years. There are many actors, writers, and inventors, basketball players, politicians, chemists, biologists, you name it, The US has more famous mathematicians than all Chileans combined, Now if you look at another country like Brazil, you see that the landscape is very different. You see soccer players, you see politicians, you see race car drivers, And this actually tends to be subsets of what already was being expressed in the US. And now we're going to go to Chile. You're going to see this is even a subset of what Brazil was exporting. So you look at Chile, you have politics, soccer player, and a few writers like Pablo Neruda, Gabriela Mistral, which are Nobel Prize winners, which is like basically the only source of like real cultural pride that we have down there. Okay? So the thing is, you can put all of these things together in this large matrix, and when you put this matrix here, the countries are sorted by, the number of different domains that they express, and the domains, are sorted by how ubiquitous they are. And you see that the UK and the US are in the top, they express everything, and the countries that are on the bottom express subsets of what is expressed on the top. So what this is telling us is that culture evolves in a very path-dependent way. In fact, if you want to increase the number of cultural domains that you express, the types of culture, by a number of 8, you have to increase the number of characters that you produce by a factor of 10. So if you have like 8 cultural domains, something like Chile, if you want to go to 16, you would have to go from 10 famous people to like 100 famous people. Now here we're going through time, and we see, for example, in antiquity, you have politicians, philosophers, writers. In the Middle Ages, you have a lot of religious figures. And when you get to Renaissance, you start seeing that painters and architects appear. In the Enlightenment, you also get composers. In the Industrial Revolution, you get, a lot of writers and scientists that appear in the Enlightenment. In the early 20th century, then you have actors appear to merge, politicians become more prominent. And if you go into the late 20th century, you're going to see that actually now there is a lot of soccer players and actors too, what this also shows us is that apparently the culture that gets amplified depends on the media. If you remember what we saw before, there were no famous painters before the 1300s. Well, there was no oil painting and there were no good brushes, So there is a relationship between culture and media. Finally, one of the things that you might ask yourself is what factors help determine this global influence? Is it people? Is it money? Is it military power? Or is it something else? For that, you want to listen to Shahar Ronen, who's going to be speaking at later today. And we also have a conference that we're doing at the Media Lab in July 22nd and 23rd. It's a conference for anti-disciplinary people that are intellectually promiscuous. There's no registration charges, so everybody's invited, and please join us if you can. Thank you.